as you are working on the final project, I'm actually working on it too. So I've selected my own magazine and I'm going through the process of adding some animation and motion graphics to it. The same as what you're doing. So if you look over here, this is basically, let me resize this a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good. So here's my storyboard from project 1. And you notice a couple things. I've added boxes, just like you are required to do, that indicate where the navigation is going to be. So previous page, this button here is going to go to table of contents. This button is going to go to the next page. And this is going to be on the cover page. And then there's going to be a home button down at the bottom. So for the cover page, we want navigation, and the previous page and home buttons are non-functional and grayed out. Now I could have did a couple things here. Say you're on the first page or we're on the cover page, you can't really go back to another page because you're on the first page. So you could do a couple things there. You don't have to include a button that'll go to the previous page on the first page. What I chose to do is just to gray it out so you can still see it. Hopefully nobody clicks on it, but I left some visual clues. So I graded out the buttons that don't work on the first page so that people will sort of get a visual clue that they don't work. So maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but when you click on it and find out it doesn't work, then there's some clue there's some clue there. But I try to do something to distinguish a working button and a non-functioning button, but you could just delete them from the first page, right? Because you don't really need a previous or home page on the home page. Does that make sense? And then we also need on the cover page hyperlinks, or a hyperlink. But the article teasers need a hyperlink to the articles. That might be a little tricky because you may not be duplicating or replicating the articles that are listed as the teasers. If that's the case, just link to an arbitrary article in one of your 10 pages. That's fine, as long as I see that you know how to make it work. So I'm going to scroll over here and let's look at the original cover. So here it is here. It's a National Geographic magazine, April 2017 or version or volume, and there are 3 article teasers. That's what we call article teasers. These are 3 articles inside the magazine that sort of are highlighted to maybe make people want to buy it, to sort of show what the contents are. And then of course this is the masthead, or we could just call this the name of the magazine. And then there's it's an illustration. I can't say that it's a photo. It's some type of image editing type of thing, or someone drew it or something like that in Photoshop, I would assume. And then text down here, the next human, and the date. So the challenge is to try to figure out what's a good way to add some motion and animation to this page to make it a little bit more inviting. All right, so here's, and then I'll talk about what I came up with. But you can't animate anything until you start to separate the elements on the page. Right now it's just one image that I did a scan or screen capture from the original. So the only thing that we could do now is animate the entire page, but we don't want to do that. There are a couple things that we could do that are easy. We could sort of make some buttons or some areas on the page that you click that will go somewhere else, and that's fine, and we don't have to break anything up. But it's easier to break things up, and I'll show you what I did, and this will give you some ideas of what I want you to do and what you can do. So Let's just break down the elements on this page. There are three teasers. So we can have the teasers animate. And we have a number of different ways that we can make them animate. They can sort of fade in wherever they are. Just fade in right where they are. Or they could sort of come in from the left or come in from the bottom or rotate in and those type of things. So for those of you who don't know, a lot of the animations that are in InDesign have been ported over from Adobe Animate, formerly known as Flash. So if you've taken that CMST 341 already, some of the animation or motion presets will be something that you're already familiar with. Okay, so yeah, so you could have the masthead animate, but you're gonna need to separate it. The next human, that could come in by itself, and then the date could come in by itself, or you could have April come in by itself and then the date. So what are logical things? And I try to look at, when I look at trying to do something like this, is what are logical chunks that we can animate. And so the theme of this cover is sort of, it's futuristic, right? It's kind of high tech. It's showing us how we have evolved. Or okay, let's I don't want to talk about evolution, because you may or may not believe in it, and this isn't a discussion of evolution. In this image, the designer obviously is trying to show there's some kind of progression from pure prehistoric man to modern man and then futuristic man, right? So it's not, we're not really here. I don't want to really debate how things came to be, because I'll leave that up to you. But let's just talk about the images. And so there are 4 images. Basically, there's this is an early man or some type of ape-like man or something, right? And then a prehistoric man, then modern man, and then futuristic man. When I say man, I mean just mankind. So I think this is a young lady in the front, so we're not talking about anything like that, just sort of the progression. Then there are a couple things you could do. If you are good in Photoshop, you could isolate each one of these people or beings, whatever you want to call it, these 4 images, and you could have them come in separately. So you could sort of have, when the page starts, you're going to have this first one appear, and then the second one appear, then the third one appear, and then the fourth one appear. And that'll kind of give you a feeling of progression. Like we started here, and then we're moving to the future. So you could do something like that. So in order to do something like that, though, you have to have Photoshop. So for those of you who've taken Photoshop course, you could do something like that. I'm not asking you to do something as extensive, but I'm just talking about when you sort of your approach to what we could do. So there are a couple things. So if you want to do something like that, you probably would want to start off with a background that was blue, and then sort of add each element, each person, or each figure to the cover until they were all there. So okay, so you could break those into 4. So what I did was I just started off by, let me just get to the bare essence of the image. And some of these things, I didn't want to do a lot of Photoshop work because it can become tedious, especially like things like this. Say we were trying to remove the words "the next human, April 2017," and then type our own text in over top of it. That way we could animate it. You could do that if you want to. If you were really good, you could use the clone tool, clone out "the next human." I guess it wouldn't be that difficult if you knew Photoshop. So, having Photoshop skills are good. It's not going to stop us from what we need to do. So, I just cropped it all out. And so now I have this photo with National Geographic. I still have National Geographic there. And that's fine. Everything doesn't have to animate. So the cool thing is that I think my version looks better than the original because this is a more close-up photo or more close-up view of the four figures, as opposed to what it was originally. It was a little bit far off to me. So now this is more in your face, especially the futuristic Star Trek type of person in the front. Okay, so that's what I use to get my sort of final cover that I'm working on. So you see on the left here what I started off with, and then on the right the clean copy that I came up with, and then in the middle what I settled on. So let's look at a couple things. I did some tricky things here, and I'll show you what they are. I'm going to try to zoom in on some of this stuff so that you can see it. So here's the easiest thing, the buttons. So this is just a previous page button, and it's just a triangle. So I used the pen tool and I just drew a triangle and then made sure it was even as best I could. And that's pretty much it. Well, not pretty much it, but the way you create a button is you have to have an image there first. You can use text too, but here I just used the image. So once I created this triangle, then I clicked on it and I went to the buttons and forms panel. Now, if you don't have the buttons and forms panel, the way you can get it is go to Windows, Interactive, Buttons and Forms. Then that makes it appear. So once we selected the triangle, and then you're gonna give it some type of instruction here. So InDesign is gonna give the buttons in the other type of animations that you do these arbitrary names. So I should go in here actually call this previous page button, just so we know what it is. And then to make the button actually activate or do something, we have to change the event. And so in this case, on the event of a click, we want to do some action, and the action we want is to go to previous page. So the way you do this, if it doesn't exist already, is that you're gonna select one of these. You want it to, and I would just use on click. So on the click of that triangle, we want to do something. We want an action to occur. So click plus, and then it shows you all of the actions that you can do. Go to destination, go to first page, go to last page, go to next page, go to previous page. Here I want to go to previous page. I don't want to say go to page 1, because then if we it's going to be tricky, because every page you're going to have to go to and then indicate a page number that we want this button to go to. This is the more efficient way to do it, previous page, because what's going to happen is you might decide to add pages or delete pages, and then that could sort of mess up things if you're being real specific. So in this case, we want this button to always go to the previous page. In this case, it's not going anywhere because this is the first page, but that's fine. This is just me. This is just what I decided to do. So it's going to go to previous page. And then here, I just selected actual size. There's some other different things that you can do to where it's going to zoom to when you click that, and I just used actual size. And then here's the appearance, and let me talk about that on another button, but this is pretty much what you do to make the button work. Now it's a button. let's scroll over to, this is my table of contents, and this isn't really the probably the ideal icon used for this. This is what people call the hamburger, and it's more used in web design, and when you click on it, it takes you to some type of menu, but I thought it might be appropriate in this case. So all this is just 3 small boxes that I filled in with black, and then I grouped them together. Then once I grouped them together, then I made them a button. And so I should actually, instead of button 18, I should call this TOCs, table of contents. And then on the click of the table of contents, this time what I did was I went to actions, and I went here, go to page. Now you notice all of the functions of what a button can do are listed here, but you also see there's a section where it says SWF, that's Swift, and EPUB only. That means if you're gonna do PDFs, these button functions aren't gonna work, or these actions aren't gonna work. And then these are actions that are only associated with PDF, right? If you're gonna do a interactive PDF, we're doing an EPUB, so we have these actions that we can do, as well as these are basically global actions that you can do regardless of what you're going to export it out as, Flash, EPUB, or PDF. And let me know if that's not clear. So I'm going to go straight to a go to page, because in this case the table of contents is always on page 2. So once we do this, we can copy and paste it, and it's always going to go to page 2. Now here's another cool thing here. We can actually add a sort of what do you call a rollover state. Okay, before we click on this, the color is, it's black of this button. Now this is a rollover state. When someone puts their mouse over top of the button, it actually turns red. Not when they click on it, but just when they mouse over it. And then we can also add a color, and let's do that. I'll show you how it's done. I click here, and then it's going to allow me to select the color that I want this button to show once I actually click on it. So 1 is a normal state, before I put a mouse on it, or before I put a mouse over top of it. 2 is rollover, once the mouse goes over top of it, and then 3 is a click. So on a click, I'm just going to, I don't know, let's make it white. And sometimes it may or may not be appropriate. So you notice once I click off everything, it is white, because this is the last state that we left it in, and we don't want it to leave it in that state. We want to always leave it in the normal state. So in this case, it's normal. This is going to be rollover. This is going to be click. So once we get out of this, we want to make sure it's set back at normal, so we're good to go. So I think this is fine. I just want to get rid of the inherit zoom and just do actual size. And I think everything else is fine here. Okay, and so we did pretty much the same thing with this button. This is just another triangle that points, having it point to the right to give the user an idea that it's going to move the document to the right or move it to the next page. So I want you to use a button that is typically or symbolically used as a button, or somehow you'll figure it out that it's a button. So it might be an arrow, it might be a triangle, it could be a couple different things. Okay, so in this case, we're going to call this next page. It's going to go to the next page in sequence. On click, it's going to go to the next page, and then the rollover is red. When it click, it doesn't do anything, so I just click that the eyeball there and just sort of makes it disappear, so it's not going to do anything on the click. I just wanted to have a normal state, a rollover state, and that's pretty much it. And then we'll look at the difference and see if we can actually even tell. And this is next page. So there we go. So that's going to give you an idea of what you're going to do for your buttons. Let's scroll down to the last one. The reason why it points like this is my home button. and I just pointed it like that. And this probably isn't the right button to use, is it? We probably need a button that looks like the home. So we click on it, it takes us home. So I'll work on that. I actually have a button that looks like the home button, so I'm gonna work on that one. So yeah, just bear with me on that. So right now it shouldn't be set to go to the next page. So I'm gonna click here to delete that. And yes, we want to delete that action. When we click on it, we want this to go home. And home means the first page, and we're on the first page. That's why I grayed it out. And we don't have it as a rollover because we don't have the it's called enable, disable, or if you're familiar with seeing the little eyeball when it comes to layers and you want one to appear, you click on it and you deselect it. So this doesn't have a rollover state. It is just it's just sort of there to show people that the button should be there, but it just doesn't work on this first page. So it's not actually doing anything. So we don't actually need to have it. I mean, we could do on click, it doesn't matter as long as we don't give it an action. So I'll come back and replace this at another time. All right, let's talk about some of the other cool things that I did here, and then I'll show you what the animation looks like. Okay. So we had to break the individual teasers into separate text boxes. So basically I retyped them, right? Because they weren't text frames initially. So we retyped those, and then we made those buttons. And then we did almost the exact same thing. Here we gave it a rollover state. So here when you roll over the mouse, it just changes red. Okay, and this is still using buttons and forms. So I made all three of these buttons. They're three different buttons. You see some other things here. You see these green arrows. That's the animation, and I'll talk about that. Let's talk about that now. So there are a couple things going on, which is pretty cool. One is these are buttons, but two, they're going to animate at the same time, and I want them to animate. And there are a couple ways that you can make them animate that would be logical, and that's what I want you to do in your project, to sort of incorporate logical ways that these the animations or the motions would occur. So in this case, I just wanted them to come from the left off the screen, and so that's what I have them do. So pretty much I click on a button, and then I went to animation, and this is the animation panel that comes up. And so I just typed in the name, Climate Facts Teaser, just so I can remind myself what it is, and then the preset. So when you click here, first of all, it's going to be none, and you're going to click here, and I'm going to choose something. I want it to you can have it disappear, it can fade in, it can fade out, it can fly in from the bottom, fly in from the left, fly in from the right. You can do all kind of things. Let me see if I can I move this over so that you can see this in the middle of the screen. Let's see. All right, much better. So we could do a number of different cool things. So fade in, fade out, fly in from the bottom, fly in from the left, fly in from the right, fly in from the top, fly out, grow large, move left, move right, move and scale. That means it's going to kind of move and resize, right? So it can move left and grow, move left and shrink, move right and grow, move right and shrink. So, or it could rotate. It could shrink, spring left, spring right, zoom in, zoom out, bounce, right? Dance, fly in, pause, fly out. So there are a couple. It could gallop. I don't know what that is, but you can click on it and see what it looks like. Pulse, spin, swoosh, wave. And then these two here are Swift file only. So we are not using the Swift file, so we don't have those options at our disposal. So I believe I did fly in from the left. Okay. So then you see a preview of what that's going to look like in your sort of animation window here. Okay. And I wanted to point your attention to here to these small sort of navigation icons here. The fact that it's selected in the middle means that it's going to be animated from the center point of the element that we're using. Okay, we can have it animate from different points here, and if we clicked on the left here, that means it's going to start animating from the bottom left part of the element. So I'm going to keep this on center now, and then a little later on I'll show you how that comes into play or what that actually means. You can actually change the scale here and the rotation too, as it's doing what it's doing, as it's animating. So it can also rotate and do some different things. So there's sort of animate to from where it is to where it's gonna go, and at its final state, it's not gonna rotate, and it's gonna be 100%. The width and height is gonna be 100%, and it's gonna fade. It's gonna fade in. So, so we've done a lot of talking about that. I'm gonna show you the animations in a minute, but this is basically how you're doing it, sort of piece by piece, to put these things together. And you're just gonna try them out and see what they look like and modify it to get it where you want. All right. The next thing is April 2007. You can see the green arrow here showing you that it is flying in from the bottom. Duration is a second. It's just going to play one time. You can make these things loop if you want, and it'll just keep going over and over. Sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not appropriate. So we're going to animate to the current location. This is the current location where it stops, and then it is going to just fade in. So nothing really complicated. It's just going to fade in just like you see the little butterfly do in this animation box. All right, so here, I guess this is I don't want to say this is the title of the magazine, or it could be a teaser, another teaser, or that's a good question. This might be sort of I want to say this is probably the main article teaser, The Next Human, or the theme of the magazine, one of the two. But what I wanted to do is make this appear to be futuristic, as if someone was typing it on a computer. So I could have just typed The Next Human and put that in one text frame. And if it's all in one text frame, it means it all is going to animate together. So what I did was, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that. I separated each letter into a text frame. This way they could come in one at a time and look like someone is typing it. And then I typed the underline here. And I wanted to make this blink at the end as if this was a cursor on one of the old school computers, right? Waiting for more input. So what I did was, if you look at the animation, let's see if we can make this. Let me make this a little bigger. No, it doesn't look like it. All right, so each letter appears. I don't want it to do a fade or anything like that. It's just gonna appear, and each letter has a certain duration. So they're gonna appear at a certain, I guess you could say speed, or if that makes sense. The duration of the animation is not that long. It's half of a second. So it's going to take 0.583 seconds to appear. When is it going to appear? on page load. So this means once this page starts to load at the 0.538 second mark is when this E in next is going to appear. It's going to animate from current appearance. I don't want it to start off the page and move on the page. I just want it to be right where it is and then animate. So okay, so we have that. It sounds a little tricky, but all I did was highlight each one of them and make each one of them an animation and make each one of them appear on page load. All right, now the other element that we haven't talked about is we have all of these elements on the page. As we make them animations, they become a part of let's say a queue, because they all are orchestrated under your control as to when that they appear and when that they don't appear. So every time you add an animation, it adds it to your timing panel, and then you get a chance to change the order of when you want things to appear. So just imagine that you're basically a conductor, and now that you have these animations, you have to determine which one happens first, which ones happen second. Are there a couple animations that happen at the same time? So you're envisioning this in your head, like how is all of this going to work out? So when the page loads, let's say you broke the 4 images into different pieces, right? And to show progression, you wanted the one in the back to show up before the one in the front, right? Because you want to show that this magazine is forward thinking, not backwards thinking, and the focus is the future and what's going to happen in the future. So you would have your timing where the smallest one showed up first, then the next one, and then maybe half a second later the third one, and then the fourth one. And then after that, maybe the title fades in or comes in from the left or something like that. Then you get the teasers to come in, and then you're imagining that they're swooshing in from the left, right? One at a time. Well, they all could come in at the same time. And then down at the bottom here, the text is going to start typing the next human, and then April 2007, something like that, right? So let's look at the timing and go over what happens first, the way I have it organized. So the orange background is gonna fade in right at the page load, and then I have a sequence here which I call red eye. We haven't talked about this yet. This is probably the coolest thing that I did on this page. I wanted this futuristic head, Star Trek Borg type of implant, this visual implant, to actually seem like it was working. And so what I did was, and I'm just experimenting with this, is, well, I did a couple things. Where the eye is, I added a red circle because I wanted the eye to sort of blink and look like it was sort of robotic. So I added red to it, and I made it transparent. I added some transparency to it so that it would sort of fade in. If it's 100% transparency, it sort of doesn't look right. So I figured I wanted to do this, but I wanted it to sort of fade in a little bit. So I did around a 50% transparency on it. And then let's go to animation here. I made it fade in, and then I made it loop, and it just loops over and over again. And then I used my pen tool, and you can see what I did here. I just drew a shape and colored it in blue. And what I wanted this to do is be sort of glowing. I wanted this head mounted Borg-like implant to pulsate a little bit. So I made it fade and I made it loop. And so I did that to a couple things. This one too here. And I just sort of made a couple little shapes here and there to sort of add some. I wanted it to appear to be blinking. All right. So I'm going to show you what all this looks like. Let me zoom out first. Go to fit page and window. We could do that. All right. So I have all this going on. There are a couple ways that you can view this file. I'm using a Mac right now, and Macs have we're exporting the EPUB, and you have to have an EPUB reader to view EPUB. We could do a couple other things too. We could go and click on Publish Online, and this will put it all online on Adobe servers and gives us a URL, and we could take that URL and share it with people. So we could do that. That's a quick way to do it. And you can also save it to EPUB, and then you can send someone an EPUB file. They have to have an EPUB reader, and then they can see it. They click on it and see everything that you see. Now we could also add sound, and I didn't include that as part of the assignment, but you could do that too. So say when we open this page, what will be appropriate? The theme is futuristic, so maybe some futuristic music in the background, right? When the text starts to type the next human, maybe you could hear some typing or something like that. So there are a couple things you could do. I didn't do any of that, and it's not required in this course. But you could add some sound if you wanted to. If you want to do some extra. So in order to see this, there are a couple things. You could preview it in InDesign and see what it looks like. There's a EPUB interactivity panel, and you can get to it just by going Windows, Interactive, EPUB Interactivity Preview. Click on that. Also, to get all of these related panels that we can use, I've selected the digital publishing workspace, right? If you use some other workspaces, you won't see exactly what you need. So I did the digital publishing, right? That gives us the media, object states, buttons, hyperlinks, things like that we need. And if you're missing something else, you just go to Windows, Interactive, select whatever it is. Let's say we're doing page transitions. It just opens a page transitions panel. Now, if we don't have this where we want it, there are a couple things that we could do. We could just keep going back and forth and use it that way. Or what we can do is, as I drag it over, I don't know if you can see that, but you see this blue line? I'm click holding and dragging. The blue line lets me know if I let this go, it's going to add it to, to right where the blue line area is. So it's a way that we can add a panel to our existing work area. And we don't want to do that though. So I'm just going to click, hold, and drag and basically detach it. So you can attach it and detach it. I want it to attach at the bottom of our panels so far. And so we can add a panel here. And the way you can tell that you're in the right places, you see the blue, and you let your mouse go, and you're right there. So that's how you can sort of add panels if you don't have all of the panels that you need to get something done. All right, so let me show you what I came up with. So if we go to EPUB interactivity, let me stop it first. So this is the preview window, and we can manipulate the size to make it larger or smaller. down here, I don't know if you see this or not, there's two ways you can view it. You can view it in a one-page format, or you can view it in a multiple page format, which means if you click to go to next pages, it's going to load those pages. If you use a single sort of preview spread mode, it's just going to look at that one page. It's not going to look at everything else. So I'm going to click on the document mode, and then the button down here, I'm going to click play, and that's going to play the whole thing, and then you can check out. Alright, so when I went back and showed you how I made the animation from this teaser, it threw the whole order off, right? And that's why I came out last instead of coming out first. I wanted to come out first. So first, second, and then third. And you see the mouse overs there as we designed them. And then down here you see the blinking underline. Of course here, this button doesn't do anything because it's grayed out. This one doesn't as well. We go here, you notice your mouse changes to something to let you know that it's something that you can do. Right? It's just a visual clue. So this lets us know we can go to table of contents, and here we can go to the next page. Let's look at that one more time. Alright, so and then I'll talk a little bit about how I did all of this. Let's actually make this change. I want climate facts to come out first. So we're gonna go to timing. And I don't see timing, and I don't know why. So let me see if I can find it. Let's go down to timing, click it. There it is. That's because we moved it. So now we have the timing. So let's look here. We have the orange background come up first. Then all of these are separate elements here. The shapes that I showed you, I just called different ones I1, I2, I3, I4. You notice different things glowing, and then the red eye is the red color there, making the eye pulsate. There are a couple ways that you can achieve something like this. You actually could go into Photoshop and modify some things in a second image and then place it over top, and then sort of make that image fade into the existing image, and then you could fade in and out, and you could do it that way too. So there are a couple little tricks that you could use. So then we have the masthead, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And then the teasers. So you see Alaska Artifacts comes in, then Surviving ISIS, and then the date. And then the next human, right? All of these are separate letters. I combined them into one, and that's why you see that the lines are all attached. All I did was, let's say we click and then hold your shift key down and click on multiple items or multiple elements or multiple let's just call them page elements, if you want them to come in at the same time. In some cases you may not want everything to come in one after the other, because then the user is waiting for all of the animations on each page, and you have all these things that are all crafted and cool, but they don't want to see that. They just want to move on, and so they're kind of waiting. So you kind of have to balance that. So I've linked them all together because basically they're just one design element. And so once I've linked them together, then as you can see here, I set a delay. Once they start to display, I don't want them to all display at once. So I have a delay on each one in this list until we get to the bottom one. Now what I wanted to do is make sure that, well, I didn't want the next human to type in all at once. I wanted it to be THE and then a little bit of time, and then next, and then a little bit of time goes by, and then human. And so on the N, I had added a little bit more delay. It's like a 1 second delay. And I did the same thing on the H in human. That's a 1 second delay too, between the typing of, or the revealing of, the T and the H. So I added some additional timing on there so that it just doesn't all come out as one text group. It comes out in like THE, NEXT, HUMAN. Now in order to fix this, you notice way at the bottom here, climate facts teaser. This is the last element that animates on the page. And we don't want that to be the case. We want that to be one of the first ones, or the first teaser that comes out from the left. So I'm going to just scroll, and you see the line that's following my little hand icon, and it's allowing me to move things around. And in this case, I dragged the climate facts teaser up so that now the timing on the animation, it happens before the Alaska artifacts and surviving ISIS teaser. So let's go back, take a look at, and let's see if it did it right this time. So it did. So there you have it. That's what I came up with. Well, one thing I didn't tell you about, how did I do the National Geographic animation. So let's get out of the preview animation preview window, or interactivity preview as they call it. So we're back on the regular page. So I did a little trickery here. I actually went into Photoshop and removed National Geographic from the image. And then I just isolated National Geographic, but I didn't want to get too detailed and type it again and try to match that, or try to find the logo, and then you gotta cut off some of the bottom of it where it interacts, the head intersects, or it goes behind the heads. I just made another copy of the magazine and isolated out, or a copy of the cover, and just isolated out the National Geographic. And then I made it a little bit transparent so I could get it to overlap where it was previously. Does that make sense? Because I wanted that, because I still have the heads. I still have the back of the heads. Let me make this completely 100%. So I still have the back of the heads here. But that's going to help me put it back in the exact place that it should be, because now that I made it transparent, I can see. Now I'm using my arrow keys on my keyboard to get it where it was before. So here's the trick. This entire box is going to animate, but the places where it overlaps, you won't see a change there, because it's just fading into the image in the background, which is the same image. So it's fading on top of itself, and the only thing that you're going to see different is the thing that changed. Now that's just a tricky way to do it. Thinking about it, I could have did the next human in April 2017 the same way too. Is just to break that area up into a separate layer, remove the text underneath of it using Photoshop, and then put that right back on top of it, and then have that fade in. So you could do that. You could do that too. It kind of limits you what you can do, because you're gonna have to. It's gonna have to animate in place. If you move it from the left or something like that, then you have part of the head moving into, and so this is something that you want to do in place, like a fade in, a fade out, or something like that. There are a lot of other cool animations that InDesign can do. You can animate things on a path, and you could combine a couple different things. Say you brought in an animation of a little character just running in place. Then you can make that animation animate along a motion path. So you can make it look like the person is running across the page or something like that. It would have to fit the theme of your magazine, or but you might be doing something that's not a magazine. So anyway, let's look at it one more time. This is just one page, but hopefully this gives you an idea of what I'm asking you to do. So we're going to go back to preview again, and let's clear everything and then start over. So there we go. Pretty cool. The next human, and then the blinking thing is just totally cool. So, and then all of the effects that I added here almost makes like it's working. It's pretty cool. So I'm gonna do that one more time so that we look at the page view, and then I'll go to different pages and talk about them. I didn't do all 10 yet, but I'm working along with you guys to get that done. All right, so these are all teasers. They're all buttons too. They animate in, and they're buttons. That's the pretty cool part. So let's say we click on, let's click on the table of contents. Go to the table of contents. It should go there. Let's just click on it right now. Okay, I noticed a couple things that happened. The word contents came in from the left, and I brought in a video to replace the image that was right here. So when I talk about creative license, incorporating some of your animations or some of your motion graphics may require you to alter the page. And in that situation, you may have to modify some of the things. But the original page looks virtually identical to this, other than with the navigation controls. And that's what I want you to do. All this text I retyped, or I located in a digital copy where I could copy and paste it and then modify it. So it looks virtually identical to this. And that's what I'll be grading you on as well. So your project is twofold. You're going to reproduce something. A lot of times what happens is when you work with clients, they may have worked with a previous designer, and somehow that relationship ended, and sometimes maybe not on a good note. And so now all the client has is the hard copies. They don't have any of the original files. So most cases, if I give a client original files, they're going to pay extra for it, because now they don't really need me. They could use these files and give them to someone else. But I do equip them with them, but I normally charge them extra to do that, because then they don't need me. But I don't want them to need me. I don't want them to I don't want to hold that sort of over them, like I have the originals. But in some cases you have to start from scratch. And so in this case, that's what, one of the challenges that you have to do, and add the interactivities. So now we have the buttons, and now of course the previous page button is not grayed out, because now it actually works. And so we have all the buttons situated as they should be, and we have the video here. And this I just got from Adobe Stock. They have videos, and this isn't exactly the right picture, but for the purposes of this assignment. It is a video of a war-torn area, and that's what this article is talking about. This may not be Iraq, but this is a image that I pulled from Adobe Stock. So it has a little watermark on it. Just because I didn't pay for it, I don't want you to pay for anything. Now, one of your fellow students said, can I create an image? Now, if you're in a war-torn area and you can do something unclassified and you were doing the same magazine as I am, then, and you can make it look as professional as, then we can talk. But if you can't make it look like if you can't generate this type of a quality, then I would say don't do it, because it's going to result in you losing some points if you try to reproduce something yourself. All right, let's go to the next page. Here I didn't do too much. I just had the images come in and animate from the top, and then evolution of human traits come in from the left. Now, if you wanted to do something more spectacular, you could have each one of these come in one at a time. That means you'd have to break those into separate pieces, which I did not do. But if you did that, then you animate them, and then you go to the timing panel and specify which one comes in first, add a delay, or have them all animate at the same time. Or you could have them animate, say, the one on the left first, then the one on the right second, and then the next one in, then the next one in. So you could sort of change up how they display too if you want to get a little fancy. You could do that too. All right, let's go to this next page. Let me close out of this real quick and scroll to that page. This is a table of contents. You can see that these are all text frames that I created. We go to this page here. The way that I made sure my design was very close to the original is that here's the original image here. Maybe a little blurry to you, and if your images are a little blurry, you want to make sure that you have the right display performance on high quality. That'll make things look a lot better. So if you see that your images are a little fuzzy, just change that. Once again, that is view, display performance, high quality display. So if you put these over top of each other, you can see how very similar the two are. So, and I just keep that off to the right so that I can make sure I'm on track here. So that's that. And then this last page, and let's get that to animate. Here I made a slideshow. I just selected 4 or 5 images from the magazine, lumped them together, and then used object states and created a slideshow. And then on top of the slideshow, let me zoom in here some, which might be helpful. Over top of the slideshow, I added buttons and had these buttons go to next state on the slideshow. So once we created the object state, we called it slideshow, and then I created 2 more triangles and then made them, added action, go to next state. So they go to the next states in the slideshow. So I had to double check, make sure all that works. If you have any specific questions, let me know. This can be quite detailed, and so if you want me to show something or create a another video on something, just let me know. Say, hey, could you, Dr. Johnson, could you do a video on XYZ? And I'll try to do it. Now you can see on the right is the original. On the left is what I came up with. Almost virtually identical. But once you reproduce the elements, then you have the ability to actually animate them. So let's go back. Let's make this one animate. So I have water collective come out first, and then there's a line here. I'm going to do that again so you can see the line comes at the bottom here, which is pretty cool. It draws up. We'll talk about that. And then this text frame fades in. And then here I just have the button controls, and as I click, so this is the slideshow I was talking about. The keys here when you do a slideshow is you just want to make sure that all of these images are exactly the same size so it doesn't look strange when you start to click. And they go left and right. So it's pretty cool. Add some flair to the design. So once again, all right, great. So let's get out of preview and we'll talk a little bit about all of these. It's basically the same type of thing. Here with the line, I just clicked on the line. It's a line. I just clicked on the line, made it 3 points thickness, and then gave it a gold color, very similar to what's in the original. And then let's go to interactive animation. All right, I called it gold line, and it's going to happen on the page load. Duration is 3.2 seconds. We only play it once. It's going to animate to its current appearance. This is its current appearance. So it's going to animate to the current appearance, which is here, from a 0 rotation, a width of whatever it is now. It's 100% of whatever it is, and a height of 0. So modifying the height here and modifying the point of where the animation occurs, and having it animate from the bottom point, the bottom center, has it start from there at 0 in terms of the height, and then animate up. So let me show you, if I clicked on the center and have it start to animate from the center, what it would look like. So it started at the center and then animated out. And so you can change how the animation happens by sort of specifying where the animation is going to start based on let's go back one more time. Based on the origin points. So let me show you one more time. This time I selected the top, middle, or the top center origin. So now it starts at the top and goes down. So there are a couple different ways that you can sort of animate something that looks like it was drawn. You could actually put a white image over top of this image and then make that animate, or reveal itself, or disappear, revealing what's under the bottom. A couple different things that you could do. We'll talk more in another episode. I think we've talked about enough things, but this should get you pointed in the right direction. If you have any questions, let me know. by this time you should already have your magazine. And now it may seem like you have a lot of time to do this, but I've given you a lot of time so that you can type things that you need to type. Hopefully you don't have to type anything at all. So if your magazine seems like it's going to be a little bit too complicated, select one that's less complicated. That way it'll save you some time. Okay? So if you have any questions, let me know. We'll be back with another part and talk a little bit more about some of the animations. This just scratches the surface. Have a great day.